Hi there. Thanks so much for being here today. For more than a decade of managing teams, my top performance often had something in common beyond just technical skills. They had empathy. They could read a room, accept feedback, and adjust their approach depending on who they were speaking with. On the other hand, the employees who struggled to perform were usually more blunt, resistant to feedback, and had difficulty building relationships. Over time, I started to wonder, is there more to this? Is empathy actually a trait that shows up more often in high performers than low performers? And that's what led to this research. I want to move beyond just gut instinct and anecdotal experience and examine whether there's a measurable link between empathy and performance, especially among non leadership roles. In this presentation, I will walk you through the design of the study, what I found, and how it might shape the way we think about performance, potential, and people development moving forward. To explore this, I started digging into existing organizational research. And what I found confirmed part of what I expected. Empathy is widely recognized as a critical component of workplace success. It plays a key role in improving communication, collaboration, and team dynamics. While much of the existing research on empathy in the workplace has emphasized empathy in leadership contexts, there's a noticeable gap in understanding how empathy influences performance among general or non managerial staff. Additionally, inconsistencies in how empathy is defined, often conflated with related concepts like sympathy or perspective taking, have made it difficult to measure and compare the findings across studies over time. So, this study seeks to address these gaps by examining whether effective empathy, which is the emotional response to others' experiences, is positively correlated with employee performance across a broader range of job roles. The goal is to contribute to a deeper understanding of how emotional intelligence may support workplace effectiveness beyond leadership. To guide this study, I asked 5 key research questions. First, what is the relationship between empathy and job performance? Do high performers have higher levels of empathy? Are there empathy differences across different job roles? Is empathy a reliable predictor of performance? And can empathy be developed or improved? My hypothesis is that employees with higher empathy scores will be more likely to be rated as high performers, showing a positive correlation between the two traits. To understand how empathy might influence employee performance, it's first important for us to break down what empathy really is and how it's been treated in past research. Empathy in the workplace goes beyond just being nice. It's a key piece in how employees relate, collaborate, and perform. Empathy is multidimensional and commonly categorized into 3 distinct dimensions: effective empathy, cognitive, and behavioral empathy. Effective empathy is actually feeling an emotion someone else is having. So, for instance, feeling sad when someone else is sad. Cognitive empathy is understanding another's perspective, so being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And behavioral empathy is when you respond to someone's emotions through action. So, an example might be mirroring another's expressions or offering comfort or support when they're feeling sad. Unfortunately, many studies regarding empathy in the workplace treat empathy as one dimensional, or they combine different dimensions, or they confuse it with sympathy, which is also known as the jingle fallacy. So, empathy is a connection one has when they share an emotion with another person, and sympathy is when a person feels sorry for or has pity on someone else. So, for clarity and comparability, it's important for researchers, including myself, to distinguish between empathy and sympathy and to clearly specify which dimension of empathy they're examining. In 2019, researchers undertook a comprehensive literature review focused on the role of empathy in organizational research. Out of 319 studies published between 1983 and 2018, only 30 met their established criteria, which were they employed quantitative methods, concentrated on measuring a specific dimension of empathy, and included samples of adults or students within an organizational context. This highlights a significant gap in research regarding empathy in the workplace. What we do know from existing research is that there is a positive correlation between empathy and employee helping behaviors and organizational citizenship behaviors. However, there's a notable lack of evidence linking empathy to task and performance behaviors. Additionally, research has focused on leadership roles, but they've proven that coaching interventions in healthcare and teaching have been proven to improve outcomes, which could really help us in our studies as well. To perform this research, this study uses a correlational design to explore whether there's a relationship between empathy and employee performance. The study is not trying to determine causation. We're just trying to see if there's a relationship. So we will utilize the Toronto Empathy Questionnaire, also known as the TEQ, which is a validated assessment specifically designed to measure our independent variable, which is empathy. The TEQ focuses on empathy as a trait with a primary focus on effective empathy, which is the ability to emotionally connect with others. A score above 45 on the TEQ is considered above average empathy. Now, the dependent variable, which is employee performance, will be captured through a 360-degree feedback tool using a 4-point frequency scale. Scores will be averaged to provide an overall performance rating. Now, if you're not familiar with a 360-degree view or a 360-degree feedback process, what that is you can think of it kind of like an overarching view of the employee's performance. So anyone in their 360-degree radius on a daily basis, whether that's peers, whether that's customers sometimes, or their supervisor, anyone who is consistently working with that employee is providing feedback. So we're getting a really nice overall perspective of that employee's performance. So to analyze the data, the Pearson's correlation coefficient, which is also known as R, will be used to determine the strength and direction of the relationship between the two variables. The analysis is appropriate because the TEQ empathy scores and the 360-degree feedback ratings are both numerical and continuous. Pearson's R produces a value between -1 and +1. If a value is closer to the +1, the results will indicate a strong positive correlation between empathy and performance. Now, on the flip side, if the values are near -1, that will indicate a negative correlation, meaning as one variable increases, the other decreases. It's important to note that the TEQ will be administered prior to the 360-degree feedback appraisal so that we can prevent any influence from performance data or peer perceptions. For this study, 150 employees from different divisions of a company that has at least 150 employees will be chosen. The company must have a culture with a strong emphasis on teamwork and high performance so that it aligns with the purpose of the study. Participants will be identified through collaboration with the company's HR team and leadership so that we can include a range of performance levels. So we'll have high performers, moderate performers, and low performers within the study. A sample size of 150 employees from across multiple divisions of one organization is considered sufficient for correlational analysis and provides a meaningful snapshot of employee performance and empathy trends within the company. While the study's scope is limited to a single organization, the insights gained do offer a valuable starting point for understanding how empathy and performance connect in actual workplace behavior. As stated before, the TEQ will be used to measure empathy, and data from a 360-degree feedback will be used to assess the employee performance. And finally, we'll use the Pearson's correlation coefficient to determine the strength and direction of the relationship between empathy and performance. So let's imagine that our data shows what we expect, that employees with higher empathy scores consistently rate higher in 360-degree performance feedback. This scatter plot is based on simulated data. I took 30 different TEQ scores and their corresponding performance scores, and I generated what it would look like to see a positive correlation. Each dot represents an employee plotted by their empathy score from the TEQ and their average performance rating from the 360-degree feedback tool. And as you can see, there's a clear positive trend. As empathy increases, performance tends to increase as well. The R-squared value of 0.5971 means that nearly 60% of the variation in performance can be explained by differences in empathy scores. That would support the hypothesis that empathy is a potential predictor of job success in employees of all levels. If the study reveals a positive correlation between empathy and job performance, the implications for organization are really meaningful. First, empathy could be used as a predictor of success within the hiring process. Companies might start using empathy or emotional intelligence assessments during the hiring process to identify high performers or even within their current employees. And then beyond hiring, empathy training could become a key tool for employee development because we do know that empathy promotes pro-social behaviors like helping, listening, and encouraging, which can create a more caring and productive workplace. Ultimately, a more empathetic culture supports employee well-being, fosters collaboration, and improves engagement. Building empathy in the workplace may reduce stress, burnout, and turnover while also improving motivation and performance. Beyond the initial scope of the study, the findings may serve as a foundation for broader research directions. One potential path includes exploring how empathy is expressed and experienced across different cultural contexts. Cultural norms may influence not only how empathy is demonstrated, but also how it affects performance and collaboration. Another area for future research is examining whether the absence of empathy in certain organizational cultures contributes to lower engagement, productivity, or retention. Understanding these dynamics could further support the case for empathy as a strategic advantage. This research could also assist with exploring how empathy might influence team dynamics, such as conflict resolution, trust, and overall group performance. So, in summary, the data from this study has the potential to inform tangible changes in how organizations approach hiring, coaching, and employee development. If high performers consistently demonstrate higher empathy, that insight could reshape how success is predicted and supported within teams. So as you can see at the bottom of the slide, at the bottom of the screen here, that once we have the empathy insight that yes, empathy is a predictor of high performance, then companies can apply strategically empathy initiatives. So whether that's in hiring, onboarding, training, they can use it in a variety of different ways to then improve empathy within their company, which is going to lead to a culture shift. You're going to see a more understanding, a more supportive work environment, which then leads to better employee outcomes. When employees feel supported and in a safe space, they're more motivated, more collaborative, they can handle their stress better. So increasing empathy across the organization is only going to lead to a great impact for the organization as a whole. It's going to lead to a more positive, resilient, and high performing workplace. So, if empathy truly contributes to performance, not just in leaders, but across the entire organization, then it's not just a nice to have trait, it's a strategic advantage we can't afford to overlook. So thank you so much for taking time to engage with my study. I hope it sparked a few new questions or perhaps even validated what you've observed in your own work. I'll leave you with this. If the hypothetical results shown today become true, imagine what's possible if we start recognizing empathy not just as a soft skill, but as a power skill. Thanks again. I really appreciate your time and your interest, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.